Even though I didn't place in the Peterstone contest, it really forced me to go crazy and try my best using a model that, honestly, I've never really been a huge fan of. Despite that though, I don't think I'll be entering again in 2025, just because it's going to be using their Arabian model and honestly I can't bring myself to cut one up. It's one of my favorites. That's right, I did decide to enter the Stone Art of the Horse contest this year after all. I really did not want to cut up my precious Arabian stallion, but sacrifices must be made. This is the second part of the full project, so check out the first video if you want to see how I made the horse that will be holding her up. The rearing horse is her Mara, the goddess of day. So you may have guessed that this horse will be Nyx, the goddess of night. The plan is to make her a Pegasus and have her hovering in the air. Originally I'd drawn feathered wings, but for the sake of weight, and duh, a night-themed Pegasus, I changed them to bat wings. Also very on-brand. I also had to figure out how I was going to engineer something strong enough to hold this weight. So that's why I had to sculpt the bottom horse over a steel rod. My uncle and I heat and bent the top rod the same way as the bottom. And with this brass tube attached, I can easily slide this piece in and out and it will be able to hold the weight. Now, where were we? Oh yes, back to the painful part. Using my Dremel, I start with his forelock. I'm trying to be careful and use a small sanding cone since I'm planning on keeping the head and ears the same. I know, I just can't bring myself to touch that pretty face. I'm doing this before I cut it off because it's much easier to work with while it's still attached. Now I can get down to business with my thin cutting disc. As always, I'm using a respirator, glasses, gloves, and long sleeves. I also have the fan pointed at me to blow away the smoke. You may have noticed the paint pen marks on the model. When doing a Drastic custom, I make sure to draw the skeleton on the model first to figure out how I will need to move things. Then I can draw with a different color where I'll need to make the cuts. This helps it so you don't have to keep looking at references as you cut, and you can just go for it. It's also a lot easier to fix mistakes with the pen than the Dremel. I try to get the excess plastic off while it's still soft, so it's out of the way and I'm not just cutting through the same glob of plastic. It can be a little hot even through the gloves, so definitely be careful. Doing big areas and hard to reach places just takes patience. I work a little bit at a time. Now I can figure out the armature and bend the plastic. The rod will be coming through the nose and into the base horse's tube. I make a guiding hole first with the smaller bit to make sure it's where I want it. Then I can drill in with the bigger one, which I really had to hold on to. I make sure it fits on the rod I bent. Thankfully it fit like a glove. I got really lucky with this project. Nothing gave me too much trouble, which is very rare. The Arabian stallion is in this elegant, proud pose, but if it's going to be flying, I want the legs tucked in a little, so I have to move the whole rump. I did try and bend these legs where I wanted without cutting them completely off, but spoiler, I end up just cutting them completely off. It might have worked if I'd cut away more plastic, but it's such a high lift I don't think I had much choice. So here's the aftermath of just cutting the rest off. For the tail armature, I drill a hole and insert a wire with a loop so it can't slide out. That's one benefit of cutting the neck off. To reattach the legs, I drill holes and insert connecting wire for strength. Luckily, these legs won't have any weight on them anyway, but they'll still be strong. I mix up my 2-part glue to adhere everything. You can see I drew some mock-ups to make sure the anatomy was right. Okay, so jumping forward a little, I did attach the steel rod with the head. It does help support the body so the weight isn't just on the neck. Currently it's just on there with some hot glue, so next I'll add some epoxy to make sure it's not going anywhere. I also added foil in the back end with hot glue to make a base. These thin wires are just for when I build the neck later, they aren't really doing anything structurally. Now I can finally start the sculpting. Since these muscles will be in a totally different place with the legs up instead of standing, it helps to just get rid of the old muscles completely. You can see I shaved down this whole area. Not only does this keep it from getting too bulky, but it's also a great surface for the epoxy to stick to. The first thing to do is just cover the whole area with a thin layer. Then I smooth it all together with rubbing alcohol. I make sure to press pretty hard on the edges so it's more of a seamless transition to the plastic. Also because I hate sanding. Now I can start adding the muscle shapes. I made sure to have a ton of reference photos on hand to look at. Of course you can't find photos of real Pegasi, they're far too fast to photograph, but I was able to use some photos of horses rolling that I just flipped upside down. I'm just laying the basic shapes down so I can adjust them if I need to. Then I can blend and add the finer detail with my cuticle tool. After that, I can blend it more with rubbing alcohol. This is super fresh epoxy, so it's blending like a dream. I let that all harden so I don't accidentally mash my fingers into it, and now I can do the same on the other side. I did go back in later and build out some areas I wasn't totally happy with. But now it's time for the neck. I've already built up a base with foil and hot glue. Basically, this is the same process as the legs. I was feeling crazy and did this neck all in one sitting, mainly because I have such nice fresh epoxy here. I do draw in some details with my silicone tool. I used a lot of photos of free jumping horses for this neck, since they tend to have their heads down and arched out. With the neck hardened, I can start filling in these gaps and adding more details. Since the original hooves are just flat, let's change that and give them some detail. I add a noodle around the edges and blend that in with the cuticle tool. I cut out a triangle for the frog and place it on. I make sure to blend and detail it as well. I also want to add long fetlocks, so I'm using epoxy to stick in some wire supports that I drilled holes for. Once that hardened, I can sculpt in the hair detail. I use the small end of the cuticle tool to draw on that texture. Now, let's see about adding those wings. First, I drill straight through the withers. I make sure it's even, and then I mix up my 2-part glue to attach the long wire. Having the wings on one long piece is super helpful for strength. Once that was completely dry, I bent them into shape with my pliers. To make the other fingers of the wings, I'm wrapping a thinner wire around the main one. actually hold on pretty well, but to make sure they won't slide around, I do glue them into place. For the skin of the wings, I'm using sheets of PETG plastic. This definitely took some getting used to. It softens with the heat, but it can also get too soft and stretch, and once that happens, there's no going back. I had to find a good balance, because it would try and go back to its old shape if you didn't hold it to cool where you wanted. They accidentally sent me an extra sheet of this when I ordered it, but thank goodness they did, because I totally messed up this twice before I figured it out. And it's still not perfect, of course. The hardest part was this big section because it's a pretty concave area. So it was definitely a new experience to work with this, but it's pretty handy, and hopefully I can use it more in future projects. Next I draw where I want to cut out the wing with a paint pen. Then I can pop them off of the wire and cut them out. I bent the edges around so they can attach to the wire, but I also added glue to make sure they wouldn't move. Next I add epoxy to give them strength around the base. I'm also using it to blend the wings into the body, to make it look natural and seamless. I'm adding little hairs that will come off of the mane into the back, like a bat has. While I'm at it, I also stick in my main armature wires into the holes I drilled. Off camera, I posed them with my pliers, and added masking tape and hot glue as the base. I will be using Magic Sculpt instead of Aves for the mane and tail. I just prefer the softness of this more for adding flowing hair details. I cover sections in noodles and then add the finer detail. I used the silicone tool to make more divided sections, so it's not just one big flat blob of hair. That can tend to happen with the softer epoxy. You lose the separation of the noodles. I made the mane and tail absolutely crazy on this. Selfishly, I just really love sculpting hair, so this was the perfect excuse. Also, I didn't get to sculpt any on my last horse. For the wing details, I decided not to use epoxy. I wanted them to retain some flexibility so they won't break. For this, I decided to use a foam clay called cosclay, which yes, is typically used for cosplays. I initially ordered the white, but there was an issue with it and they very kindly sent me a giant tub of the black, which ended up working out way better anyway because I forgot with the wings being clear, you can see it from the bottom. So like I said, the stars are really aligning for me on this project. It certainly took some getting used to. Unlike the epoxy, the wetter it is, the stickier it gets. Also, the faster you pull it, the stickier it is. But it's really cool, and most importantly, flexible. So that's another material I look forward to incorporating in the future. I did add some protruding knuckles, I guess you could call them. This gives it a more intentional looking shape. I had some leftover epoxy from something else, so I started working on the tail. I do this the same way as the mane. I did go back to using Magic Sculpt the next day. I do have to take breaks because this is a lot of detail and it does take a while. So I think this took me about 3 or 4 sittings. Here you can see I stuck an extra wire on because I wanted another piece of the tail coming off. So I make sure to work on other parts while that hardens. I also ended up cutting off a piece of the mane, so don't be afraid to adjust and edit as you go. And with that done and everything sanded and washed, I can finally add the primer. I do want the wings to have some transparency at the ends, so I tape those off with saran wrap. Here you can see it's a new day and I've made sure everything is looking good with the primer on and dry, and any last minute imperfections taken care of. I decided I wanted a night sky gradient effect, so even though she will be pretty dark, I still need a white base for the blues and for the light parts of the mane and tail. With the white done, I add a tan shade to the mane and tail. Then I go in and shade that with a darker tone. Now I can start adding the light blue. This will also be a good base for my darker blues to give them some dimension. I did plan on having this blue show through more on the mane and tail, but I ended up not liking it. Next, I shade with a deeper blue. Then I add a purple, almost reddish tone. Here I'm going in with black to do the underside and legs. I brighten up the horizon a little with light blue. The next day I remove this saran wrap and add white to the wings to blend this edge. Then I paint these with the same colors as the body. I want some stars to shine through on the wings, so I'm adding these stickers to the front and back of the plastic. I'm using the 3D kind so I can get them off easily. I add the black to make the same horizon effect as the body. I leave that transparency at the ends of the wings, but I do shade the fingers. Now I can pop off those star stickers. I carefully add little star halos with a light blue. I was really nervous about this. Pressing just a little too hard on the trigger would mean having to repaint that section. I really debated even doing this, but I'm glad I did. The key was to not fall into patterns and to make sure they were random enough, distance and size-wise. Once fully dry, I sealed it all with my matte spray and let that dry as well. To make these blurs look like stars, I use a white paint pen to add the little dot in the middle. This helps immensely to make them look like stars. Since I couldn't airbrush these little hairs, I will be hand painting them. I added a white base already, and now I'm using the tan shade. I also bring it up onto the purple to add highlights. I do the same for the tails so that they match. For her eyes, I add the white and then paint the black circles over top. I add a ring of dark blue and blend in some light blue while it's still wet. I add black to the middle and then repeat this again until it's looking how I like. I let everything dry again and then seal it with my spray lacquer for a satin finish. I also glossed the eyes and nostrils off camera. I waited about a week for that to fully cure, and now I can add the gold enamel. I will be adding it to the tips of the mane and tail. I also paint her moon gold. Lastly, of course, she needs some little gold horseshoes. One little extra detail is I wanted her to have some flowing ribbon decorations. To make them posable, I hot glue a wire in. I used hot glue since it doesn't show up on the outside of the white fabric. I cut off the extra and used clear nail polish so it won't fray. 'Cause trust me, this fabric really wanted to fray. I attached them to a wire with a little charm and airbrushed the ends the same shade of blue. You can see I used my arm to keep them from flopping around in the air while painting them. To put them on, I slide them through the gap between the mane and the wing. Then I can move them around to my heart's content. I did have to coat the gold enamel with a gloss varnish so it doesn't rub off on the back there. Mainly when it gets blown in the wind outside when taking photos. But without further ado, it's time for the final result. Obviously, this is the biggest project I've ever done, and I'm really glad this contest pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like, really far out of my comfort zone. Even though I sacrificed my Arabian Stallion, it was worth it. And I did manage to find another one during Breyerfest anyway. And as for the results, I did end up getting top 3 at the Art of the Horse contest, and then overall custom champion at the show the next day, so that was amazing. I'm so excited to see them together at last. I'm also glad so many people were able to see them in person. I really struggled to properly photograph them together. So thank you for coming along with me on this wild ride, and I hope you are inspired to do something really big and crazy as well. As always, make sure to boop that like button and subscribe for more projects.